Hey, welcome back to our channel, everybody. This is our honey harvest for 2019. Despite the weather not being the best here in Jacksonville, North Carolina, I was able to get out to the bee yard this morning. I pulled a shallow, a deep, and 3 deep frames from one of the hives. And this will be the first time using the Maxent 3100P, the power extractor. It can handle 6 shallow or medium frames and 3 deeps at the same time. All right, here we go, folks. So I'm gonna try this out. Picked this up for this year's harvest. It's called an uncapping needle roller. So the idea is you just roll over the capped honey, both vertically and horizontally. And the concept to this thing is you will preserve a lot of the wax cappings because it should just puncture each cell, unlike uncapping it with a knife or a hot knife, cold knife, whatever kind of knife, where you slice off all the cappings and it falls into your uncapping tank. We don't really have a need or desire to make anything just yet out of the wax. So that's why I picked this thing up, and we'll see how it works. You gotta apply some pressure, but it looks like it is working as advertised. So you got to go both ways to get as many of the cells uncapped as possible. And just spin it around. And do the same thing on this side. Got a few bees that made it into the garage. Maybe they'll lose interest here soon. So yeah, see if we can get this on camera. So there you go. That is what the uncapping needle roller can do. I'm gonna go over it just a few more times. There's some honey already dripping, but that seems to do a pretty good job. Quick, simple, rather efficient, and seems like it uncapped the majority of the cells. Guess we'll find out here soon when I spin the frames. And just a quick look of our very first frame inside the extractor. All right, I'm gonna grab another one and do the same thing. Now that's a solid frame there. It's got some weight to it. All right, just another quick look. I'd say that works pretty well. And as you can see, not too much waste falling down into the uncapping tank. All right, so I'm gonna do a few more and we'll resume here in a little bit. All right, so I'm on my last frame. I'm gonna load the extractor up with 3 deeps as well, and this thing works as advertised. I mean, so far, I haven't spun anything yet, but it seems to do a pretty good job of uncapping or puncturing each cell. So you just go lengthwise and then go vertically as well. But pretty quick, very efficient. So far, I'm pretty pleased with it. But like I said, we'll see how it works once we spin some of the frames. Okay, that's the last deep. Everything looks good. We got 6 shallows and 3 deeps. So here we go. Gonna turn the Maxent 3100P on and see how much honey we get out of these 6 frames. Okay, here we go. Let's turn it on. Bring it up to about half power just to make sure everything's balanced. And then we'll crank it up to full power and let it run for probably the better part of 30 minutes or so. It's got a little wobble to it, but that's kind of expected initially as it's starting to sling some of the honey out already. And don't forget to open the honey gate. Actually, we'll do that here in a little bit once some honey accumulates. So if you can see on the side there, honey's starting to be extracted. So let's turn this thing up. It seems to be pretty balanced. Oh. So I started to experience a pretty significant wobble to where this thing starts walking once I get to about 70–80%. Yeah, there we go. So I'm just going to dial it back to 50, let it run at that speed for maybe 10 or 15 minutes until some of the honey is extracted and it becomes more balanced, and then turn it up to 3/4. And then eventually 100% power and let it run for 30 to 40 minutes. So the only thing with this is your medium or shallow frames that are spun radially, you don't have to reverse them at all. However, the deep frames that sit vertically on the outside, you do have to flip them. So eventually I'll have to do that. But yeah, so far, that's 50% power, very quiet, and as you can see, honey is being slung to the outside and will drip down to the bottom, accumulate, and eventually start running out the honey gate. Alright, it's been running at half speed for 10 minutes. There appears to be a good amount of honey accumulating at the bottom, so now I'm going to open the honey gate to let some of the honey drain, and then I will turn the speed up to 3/4 and then full power and see if we are still experiencing a significant wobble. Alright, so after letting the extractor run for the better part of 30 minutes at half power, I kept experiencing a significant wobble once I hit about 70 and 80%. So I experimented a little bit and I flipped the deep frames Even though the frame that faces the outside of the extractor still seemed pretty wet, as in it had quite a bit of honey left in the frame still, I flipped a few of the frames and now we're able to hit 80% power before any sort of wobble. So I'm going to let this go for another 10 minutes or so, try to increase power and eventually get to full power and let it run for maybe 20 or 30 minutes. And there's still a good amount of honey coming out the honey gate, so that's a good thing. It's exactly what I want to see. Alright, I let it run for about an hour. I was able to get up to about 80% without any sort of significant wobble, and then turned it up to 100%, and it resulted in me leaning on the top of the extractor just so it didn't walk across the garage, but there's still some honey running out, and if we can take a peek in here, it's filtering nicely. And we are about maybe a fifth, maybe 20% full of a 5-gallon bucket. So maybe about a gallon from 3 deeps and 6 shallow frames. So let's take a quick look at one of the deeps so I can show y'all how the uncapping needle roller worked. So it looks messy, but if you can see, I think it did a pretty good job of puncturing each one of the honeycomb cells and allowing the honey to spin out of it. So pretty good. I'll give the uncapping needle roller 2 thumbs up. Works as advertised, and for 10 bucks, can't really go wrong. Alright folks, it's just after 2 p.m. We started at 10 this morning, and we are down to our last 4 frames. So check this one out. That is a very nice looking deep. And to get a closer look, that is exactly what you want to be harvesting. This roller has worked extremely well. Very pleased with my purchase. It does not get any easier than just going back and forth in both directions over each side of the frame instead of messing around with trying to uncap the wax capping on the frames with a knife, whether that's a cold knife or a hot knife. This is as easy as it looks. Let's go back and forth. Get it all messed up. Do the other side, which the bees didn't have a chance to draw out as much as the side we were just looking at. But yeah, just go back and forth in both directions. And the honey is able to be extracted rather easily. That's that. And a close look at the uncapping tank. You can see there is not a whole lot of waste, practically no wax, and very little honey that has dripped off the uncapping needle roller there. So it works as advertised, very pleased with it. And again, you can't go wrong for 10 bucks. And there is a sign that we are coming to an end. So I set the shallow out here with some of the wet frames after they were extracted about maybe 20 minutes ago. And it doesn't take long for the bees to find it, that's for sure. So for the folks that may not know, the bees will rob out any last little bit of residual honey, and this super will be ready to be stored until next year. Here we are spinning the last few of our frames, and we were finally able to achieve 100% power. So this is the second half of the frames that are in there, meaning that I flipped them. Some of them had some pretty good weight to them still, and some were pretty light. But as you can see, at 100%, it's pushing a good amount of honey out of the honey gate still. So now that this thing is running better than it has all day, I'm thinking I will take the time, maybe an hour or so, and spin these frames again with the goal of trying to achieve 100% and see how much more honey we can get from them. I was messing around with the uncapping fork, this thing, and some frames did have a little bit of honey left, so the uncapping needle roller does a great job, but I'm thinking it might leave a little honey behind. So if you're trying to maximize your harvest, try and spin your frames at 100% and see how much honey you can still extract. Okay everybody, that concludes our honey extraction for today. So the newest problem we have is with the filter. So the filter is about 4 or 5 inches tall, and I knew this was going to happen, but it has stopped filtering because the honey in the bucket is touching the bottom of the filter. So I'm thinking we're just going to have to lift it up and hold it as long as possible, or as long as it takes, so all the honey can drain down into the bucket. So I went back through and spun all the deeps one last time because some of the frames were looking pretty wet. And if you can see this or not, there's probably a few pounds, maybe 2 or 3 pounds or so, of honey that sits in the bottom of the extractor. So let's open the honey gate one last time. And remember, fellow beekeepers, to always tip your tanks. And that is exactly why. So as you can see, there's a pretty good amount of honey that sits at the bottom there. So that does it for us. I have not weighed this yet, but if I had to guess, I'm thinking at least 50 pounds or so. Definitely between 50 and 60 pounds, because a full 5-gallon bucket is 60 pounds of honey. And I think we're about there. So probably around 50 pounds. Which ain't too bad, considering I only pulled a shallow, a deep, and a few deep frames. Some of the hives didn't do as well as others this year, but that's just how things go. So now that we have our own extractor and a few tools to make extracting easy, I am going to try and capitalize on that. And if there's any bit of a fall harvest, which could be goldenrod is one of the main sources. I've heard some people like it and some people don't. I have not experienced it myself. It's supposed to have a very unique flavor. So we will see. If I can harvest some goldenrod honey, I'll let you all know. Alright, thanks for watching everybody. Cole's Farm, June 9th. Late afternoon now. This has been about, it's like a 4 to 5 hour process, but it's not bad at all because it's pretty darn fun. Especially when your family can come out and hang out with you and participate a little bit. Alright, again, thanks for watching. Cole's Farm, Jacksonville, North Carolina. If y'all happen to see this video, be sure to subscribe to the channel, hit the bell to receive notifications, and if you're interested in purchasing any honey, we are on Google Maps, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, and that's about it. Also on Local Honey Harvest or Local Honey Finder. It is a subset of Pick Your Own, those websites. So all of our information is on there, to include our phone number, or you can just message us through Facebook. All right, one last time. Thanks for watching, everybody. Okay, here we are, 2 hours later, and the cleanup crew, aka the field bees, are doing their job with this honey super. I just set out the uncapping tank and the extractor on the front porch. Let's go take a look and see how the bees are cleaning that stuff up. Alright, here we are on the front porch, the uncapping tank, to include the tools, have been out here for less than an hour, and it already looks like the bees have cleaned it up pretty well. There wasn't too much residual honey in the Tupperware here because I used that thing, which is awesome. And I literally just set the extractor out here, and as you can see, it does not take long for the bees to get to work. So I'll leave this out here for a few hours. I'll check on it after sunset, and I'll move it inside eventually, but I'm gonna let them get as much honey and pollen out of this thing as possible to make cleanup easy for me and to provide them with some food. Just wanted to share this little homemade do-it-yourself trick. So if you have one of these filters, as you can see, it's about maybe about 4 inches deep. So eventually when your honey, reaches the top of the bucket, it's going to meet the bottom of the filter, and the filter, well, will not let honey pass through because it has nowhere to go, right? So I just grabbed some scrap wood, and this is a good reason to keep some on hand, and this seems to be working just fine. So I got the filter resting on the very edge of the wood's resting on the very edge of the bucket, and that is allowing the honey to drain through. So I have absolutely no idea how much it weighs. This is a pure guesstimate by holding it, but there's probably about 3 to 5 pounds of honey in the filter. So this should take a few minutes, probably about 20-30 minutes to filter through. There's a closer look. But yeah, solved my problem. It's a good problem to have if you're harvesting a full bucket's worth of honey. But yeah, solved my problem, and we should have all of our honey filtered here shortly. So thanks for watching, and this is our honey harvest for 2019.